Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. All right, talking about the week, very powerful week, I would say. Some interesting huge round, some interesting startup have raised, a wide variety of companies. So let's get going. Starting from United Venture leading a $21 million round in Electra, Boston-based startup developing battery optimization software for the automotive market. The other investors are LIFTT, Stellantis Ventures, Club degli Investitori, and BlackBerry Limited. So this has different level of interest, which I thought it was very curious, starting from the actual products that the guys are developing. So my understanding is that they got exactly to the core of the EV industry, because battery management in particular is still like a big problem, and nobody really is figured out already how to essentially provide powerful batteries that have quite enough range. So it's a serious problem. It's getting better every year, I feel. So every technology is really developing extremely fast. So they're in a vertical which is moving extremely fast. But what they're doing is really working in a software solution for battery management, analytics, and adaptive control, which is a very interesting angle, because what they do essentially, they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to make a digital twin of the battery, which essentially is fed through metrics from the actual battery. And then from there is a bunch essentially of analytics, which include predictive modeling and so on, to actually optimize the usage and the control of the battery. So it's essentially really well thought business in a very high growth market. With, by the way, the founder also is pretty incredible. I mean, with the NASA background in satellites, that's also it sounds that has all the possible positive signals there. So totally interesting.
Yeah. Well, you said it all. And basically, this startup has all the check marks, electric vehicle, check. Artificial intelligence, check. Digital twin, check. It's all there. It makes a lot of sense. You know what I like in this case, among other things, the post by United Ventures telling out the investment theory, the investment thesis around investment. So I really like the way they explain why they believe this is gonna be a success and so on and so forth. So I like the approach. I love the approach, and I like the entry sentence: EV adoption is unstoppable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, completely. So another two elements that I noticed, which totally caught my attention, was one kind of psychology / psychiatry wise, which I didn't think about it. So in some of the reviews, they talk about range anxiety. So EV users have this new form of anxiety, which maybe is going to be a new thing in the future, which is basically they don't know exactly how much the range is depending on the condition. And what is interesting is that speaking with electric vehicle owners, apparently range really changed depending on the temperature of the climate. So colder climate, you have less range. If you have a Tesla, hotter climate, you can have more kilometers and so on. And even, imagine this, I was talking with a guy that owns a Tesla, slopes. So essentially, if there is a change of slope, which you don't even think about when you use an internal combustion engine, that makes a difference in electric vehicles. So, going from, Lombardia to the mountains, that's hard on the EV vehicle, but going down is you actually expand the range. So that's pretty interesting, because it essentially gives us new ways of thinking about cars, which we never thought about. So that's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, you're right. The psychological angle is interesting. I was reading a conversation yesterday with another person about EVs. He was saying No, I can't really purchase an EV vehicle because, if you want to go to drive to Rome, you would have to stop somewhere in between, wait for the battery to charge, and we simply wait. Never went to Rome by car. I know it. So why is he considering that possibility? So I mean, that's weird, right?
Interesting.
You're probably never gonna go to Rome by car ever, but you're worried about that. So that's,
well, just in case you have.
You never know, right?
You never know. The other element, which I thought very, very curious, which I kind of forgot about them, is BlackBerry. Never really, after so many years of remembering the good and all the BlackBerry phones. Basically, the business took a very strong pivot. I don't know how long it took, but essentially they're focusing on cybersecurity and IoT technology right now. And they're doing extremely well in the automotive sector. So it's a very, very interesting thing to keep in mind and maybe worth researching. So awesome job for sure.
Yep. One final note. This startup, as you said, we have an Italian founder with a background at NASA, with a lot of research, very, very skilled person. The startup is based out of Boston, Massachusetts, and they have an operating office in Italy. But right now, I didn't include them into the my tracking.
The tracker.
Rounds. I made a very quick check on LinkedIn, and there are very few people in Italy in the Italian office. So for now, I'm doing it out, which might change. I'm adopting a strict regulation on that right now.
You're very disciplined, Nick. Very disciplined.
Trying to.
Awesome. All right, moving on. Microtech, PC and tablet brand, raising 2.8 million in a crowdfunding campaign. With investor Anthilia Capital Partners, SGR, and Azimut AliCrowd. So this is interesting because we haven't seen in a long time a PC and tablet brand, fully Italian, which essentially is raising capital in a very innovative way through the crowdfunding space. So that's really something worth mentioning. What's your thinking on that? I mean, they're really trying to play in a very difficult field.
Yeah, it surprised me actually. Like probably it surprised you. Even though from the campaign and from the website you can see they're doing something more than just designing and producing tablets, and they're developing this self-configuration platform for gaming hardware basically. So they're going after a specific, probably highly lucrative niche of the market, whereas gamers tend to spend good money on their machines, and they tend to change them, with components, accessories, and stuff like that. So basically, they're setting up some kind of Dell-like on-demand platform for this very specific niche, and that's an very interesting approach. The other
super interesting
points about this deal, and the size on crowdfunding. In the last few weeks, I've been taking a look at at the biggest crowdfunding campaigns, and there are a few that are getting bigger. And in this case, that's 2.8 million is no small feat. And the investors, apart from AliCrowd, that we know it's a fund that invests in crowdfunding campaigns. The other investor that was interesting was Anthilia Capital Partners, with a very specific fund. The name of the fund is Anthilia LTIF Economia Reale Italiana. So real Italian economy, or Italian real economy, whatever. And that's not exactly a VC fund. It's an investment vehicle under a different regulation, at least for Europe. An LTIF, European Long-Term Investment Fund. And that's interesting because it brings together some features of a VC fund. It's a closed-ended fund. It raises capital at the beginning, and then it has a long expected holding period for its investments. But it can be subscribed by retail investors. So common investors, normal investors can subscribe towards of this fund and take an exposure of more risky assets in a sense. So illiquid,
Great point.
SME companies, private debt,
Great point.
Stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
That's cool. I also noticed that exactly what I mean. Totally agree with what you're saying. So the closest thing I've seen is what they called crossover funds, where essentially, basically, they pull capital and then they use a mixed strategy between liquid markets, public equities, and the private markets. But it was that the difference that what I've seen is more kind of a pooled vehicle. This seems to have like different kind of products on different levels. So definitely a structure which is extremely innovative, and as you say, trying to make sure that the risk exposure is not just to the high volatility markets, but you also take in maybe some good part of the liquid markets. So yeah, definitely not a bad strategy.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then in Italy we have this specific regulation approach, alternative investment products for retail. They have some fiscal exemptions or stuff like that. So it's you have more advantage in subscribing this type of products, but not investment advice. Remember, this is a product that invests in small to medium enterprises and in startups. So it's
yeah.
But
awesome
a way to get the public exposed to VC at least, or to very difficult asset classes.
Nice. All right. BeyondTheBox, edtech startup raising 650k euro from POLIMI Graduate School of Management, CDP, and SuperCharger Venture. So interesting deal as well. Basically, is a matchmaking play. The guys at BeyondTheBox, basically, they're trying to supply extremely high-skilled consulting through a matchmaking algorithm. So you basically post your question. The AI sort of matches you with the best qualified person able to answer your question, and then you get consultation. You have different tiers of subscription. So it's a very interesting way to apply the sort of marketplace matchmaking and AI elements to something which can be extremely useful for corporation, for like consulting, and they really focus on really technical stuff like legal strategy. So there is a lot of things going on. So yeah, totally interesting, and definitely looking forward to see if that's the future of consulting. I mean, that's AI powered consulting.
Well, if you think about it, the interesting bit here is the set of investors. So I can understand CDP, they're these investors. SuperCharger is an accelerator focused on edtech, makes good sense. But POLIMI Graduate School of Management, that's interesting, right? As you were saying, that says something about their bet on something alternative coming up about how to distribute wisdom and knowledge. That's will interact in the future. That was very interesting.
Awesome. Talking about another trend which is getting more and more established is the e-grocery space. So Tulips acquiring green project, essentially kind of solidifying a few players that are actually trying to play in the grocery and quick delivery space, especially not for a single product, but for fresh products. So Tulips has been around for a while. They deliver essentially fresh produce, and they also have this model which is called proximity dark store, where essentially is blending dark stores with like fast delivery. So it's a very interesting model, and the guys have been expanding through acquisition by essentially acquiring one of their local competitors, and so solidifying a market. Tulips is not the only e-groceries that is playing in Italy, but it's definitely worth mentioning. The company is doing really well, about 10 million in revenue, I would say. And it's not small, definitely not small. It's definitely significant and worth keeping on the radar for sure.
Yep. The interesting approach they had was to stay away from the biggest Italian cities and to start from a smaller area with more concentration, some probably less competition with that specific type of service, and it is working. And as you said, it's one of the few startups in Italy that's growing through acquisitions. It probably makes sense given the business model. But I have to say, you must be good to implement the type of strategy without, going down because of integration problems and stuff like that.
So true.
Very good.
Awesome. So last mention, like honorable mention, our friend at Amazon announcing a second close, 3.65 million for their holding company, which essentially sits on top of Amazon, which is a startup studio. And what is cool is that they're, I believe, the first to actually bring the dual model in Italy in that specific form. So they're trying to really build company, but at the same time have a holding company, basically doubling their bets in the best deals possible. And they've been, raising capital essentially from scratch. They've been able to actually involve also international investors. So definitely a great job done there. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, congrats, Farad. That's great. I'm very happy and I'm very curious, as you said, and I agree with you about how this model will evolve. If it will work in Italy as well.
Totally. Yeah.
And I've got one final mention that it was mentioned to me after I sent the newsletter that among the startups raising capital last week, almost half are led by women CEOs.
Nice.
And the women founders.
Beautiful.
So BeyondTheBox, Holifya, Flare. That's in terms of diversity. That's interesting. Very interesting data point.
Awesome.
Just wanted
great insight. No, it's not obvious, and it's a great insight for sure. It's a change of trend for sure. So after years of trying supporting like a founder and diversity, something is moving really fast. So that's awesome for sure. All right, Nick, thank you so much for joining, and see you next week.
Ciao, Jack. Have a great day. See you everybody in a week.